So mapping is complicated. Just on the surface, there are so many things to consider when making a map. Like, does this rhythm make sense? How does the cursor movement feel? What slider velocity do I use? Does my spacing fit the song? Mapping is simple when you just don't care about any of this, but people care. People care a lot about mapping. Okay, come here. Over the last few weeks, it feels like the ranking system has changed more than it has in the last few years. Some people are happy about it, some are frustrated, and most people, meaning you, probably have no idea what's going on. The act of placing circles and sliders is complicated, sure, but it's even more complicated to understand a beatmap ranking system that's been evolving for the last 17 years. What maps should be ranked? You'd think this is an easy question. There's the ranking criteria, a list of rules that all ranked maps must follow, but this document can't reasonably account for how a map follows its song, how playable a map is, how object placements are structured, and all of the other subjective nuances to map design. This is the core of the problem. There are disagreements about what maps should be ranked. I'm going to make some generalizations here for the sake of explanation. Players don't have a voice in the ranked section. It's always been this way, really. The system is dominated by mappers, and just getting involved in a ranking system this deeply rooted in mapping culture is extremely difficult. For players, the next best option is to loudly complain when a map they dislike is ranked, like this map from earlier this year, the lowest rated map in the game right now. Or players loudly complain when a map they enjoy is blocked from ranked, like this stream farm map was. On the other side, mappers have control over the ranked section. They complain about ranked maps too, but they understand the mechanics of the beatmap ranking system. They know how to articulate their mapping opinions and can take action against maps they dislike. Mappers, or the nomination assessment team in current times, are seen as the ones with the most influence, but because they don't see eye to eye with players, they're publicly perceived as the bad guys who make poor choices. They allow certain maps to be ranked, and block other maps from being ranked. This conflict is why the question, what maps should be ranked, is controversial. There's tensions between the opinions of everyone in the game. That tension ebbs and flows, and in March of this year, it reached a critical point. I embarrassingly helped push a proposal that'll go down in the history books next to Z-Trot's exciting new news. The proposal itself was bad and backpedaled within a day. Afterwards, the NAT worked on a set of more agreeable changes, which is what this video is actually about. Hy-Vee, the current leader of the NAT, approached me about making a changelog video for NAT changes. So that's what I'm doing. There's a news post on the OS website covering all the recent changes to the ranking system, and this video aims to contextualize everything for the average OSU player. Part 1. The Beatmap Management Subforum. This is a place where people can propose changes to the ranking system. Until now, changes were only really discussed within the relatively small nomination assessment team, so the goal of this forum is to do the OSU thing, get more community input. And of course, the changes I'll be talking about today were all discussed on this forum. Except for the last change, we'll get there. Okay. Part 2, Beatmap Nominator Applications. These probably need some explanation. Beatmap nominators are the people who nominate beatmaps for ranked status. If you want to be a BN, you visit a third-party website and fill out an application, which is then evaluated by the NAT. So let's start from the top here. A fresh application workflow. Prior to this change, the BN application had been stagnant for nearly 5 years, and slowly a sort of metagame took shape. As someone applying to the BN, you would seek out a specific type of map to mod. It couldn't be too good because then you couldn't give much feedback, and it couldn't be too bad because then you'd have to tell a mapper to remap everything. It had to be somewhere in the middle, which was a rare map to find. Then you would give extremely thorough feedback with a focus on specific overarching issues from this list. Repeat that 3 times and you could join the BN, after which you'd likely never mod maps like this again. The new BN application focuses on what you'd be doing as a BN, nominating maps. The NAT now evaluates your decision-making process, why you would or would not nominate a map. Removal of the ranking criteria test. Yes, a test was previously part of the application, but the test didn't really affect the outcome of your application, so it wasn't worth keeping around. Progress bar for applications. Applying to the BN used to be confusing from the outside. You'd apply, then wait, and after 2 weeks, you'd suddenly receive a message saying you passed or failed. People didn't like that. It just felt bad to not know the status of stuff. So this new progress bar shows every step of the application, just making people aware of the situation. Reworking application feedback. Previously, when the NAT finished evaluating an application, they would write out a big feedback wall of text. This feedback was a consolidated version of every NAT member's evaluation, so instead of going through this redundant and weirdly formal sometimes writing procedure, the NAT's evaluations are now sent directly as feedback instead. Inevitably, people have questions about their application, so this new communication platform was set up. It's like a mini forum thread to talk about your evaluation with the rest of the NAT, paired with OSU web notifications so you don't miss anything. Let's say your application is denied and you want to try again. When you go to apply, you'll see this. A cooldown is how long you have to wait before you can reapply. Previously, you could receive cooldowns of specific lengths depending on certain conditions, but now every cooldown is set to a consistent 60 days. You might have noticed a trend about being open with everything about BN applications, and this new archive listing is the culmination of that. If you're looking for examples of good and bad evaluations, there's an infinite well of knowledge here. And it's not only for applications, it also covers BN evaluations as well, which you need more context. Part 3, within the beatmap nominators. Let me super quickly explain what it's like to be a BN for the first few months. Immediately after joining the group, you're put on probation, and after about a month, the NAT check in on you. If you've had problems, like everything you nominate has unrankable issues, you'll be kicked from the BN. But if you've been doing fine, you'll no longer be on probation, and the NAT will check in on you every 3 months. So, going back to these changes, probation is no longer a demotion option. Before this change, the NAT would essentially punish BNs who did something wrong by making them go back to probation. This didn't really do anything though. Probation BNs could just nominate safe maps for a month while waiting out the probation period. As of now, BNs are simply warned for doing things wrong, and if an issue is repeated or severe enough, they're removed from the BN. Vetoes are something that players might have actually heard of. They're like a center point of mapping drama. Here's how they work. If a BN thinks a map shouldn't be ranked for whatever reason, they can place a veto on the thread. If the mapper refuses to address the issue, the veto is escalated to mediation, where a vote decides if the issue is important enough to block a map from being ranked. Previously, this vote was handled by a random portion of BNs, but people complained that veto results were too random because they depended on who was selected. So now every BN is selected for the vote, more accurately representing the mapping community. And there's been one dev side change. Hybrid or multi-mode maps now require fewer nominations. So for example, a set with OS and Taiko difficulties would need 4 nominations before this change, but now the set with the most difficulties needs 2 nominations, while every other mode needs 1. Math. Part 4, within the nomination assessment team. To join the NAT, you can't apply for it. You have to be selected by members of the current NAT, which leads to an unending series of circle jerk allegations. The selection process isn't just like, we like this guy, get him in. It involves pulling a subset of BNs into the inner circle to temporarily perform NAT duties. This is both like a training system and a way to see who has what it takes to join the NAT. Then after that temporary period is finished, the NAT votes to decide who joins the team. There's a very clear hole here. Which BNs are invited to join this trial NAT system? Before today's update, the NAT would select a few people they had hopes for and let RNG decide the rest. As of this change, the RNG portion is defined by beatmap nominators, who can now vote for who's invited. It might not alleviate the circle jerk allegations, but at least this change gives the community some input on who essentially leads the ranking system. That was going to be the end of the list, but one more change came in literally the day after I planned this video. The story starts with a tweet. Nozomi, a beatmap nominator, nominated this map. It was ranked smoothly, no issues during the qualified phase, but during his evaluation, Nozomi received a warning because the NAT claimed the map had problems. Peppy caught wind of the tweet and questioned the call made by the NAT. He thought the map was fine, and that punishing a BN after it was ranked without issue was weird, so he created this poll asking if the map should be ranked or not. The results were pretty clear. Most people think the map is okay, so the warning was taken back, and Peppy encouraged the NAT to follow the community's interests. That's what led to this change. Based on community feedback, the nomination assessment team will no longer take a proactive approach enforcing arbitrary mapping quality standards in their evaluations. In simpler terms, the NAT won't be repeating what happened to Nozomi. They'll only warn BNs for objective unrankable issues, vetoes that the community is in favor of upholding, and major issues brought up when a map is qualified, not after it's ranked. So what do people think about this change? Let me pull you in for another round of generalizations. The mapping community hates this. A recent flash of resignations from the NAT show that the team didn't appreciate this direction, and that sentiment is shared by people who value ranked maps beyond their practical use as game levels that follow the ranking criteria. Ranked maps have historically been associated with a certain tier of quality, curated by mappers, and this change reduces the ranked section's already limited quality control. Pointing stuff out on qualified maps is still an option, but it puts a target on your back if people disagree, so a lot of people just don't go through the trouble. That's the mapper's perspective. Players, the most I see is a couple threads on Reddit where people say this direction is great. Players want to change, and that change is here. Beyond Reddit though, I suspect a lot of players just don't care. They'll continue playing the game, and the nuances of the ranked section don't really affect them that much. It doesn't affect their multi-lobby with their friends, you know? Regardless of which side you take, you should recognize that this change will allow more types of maps into the ranked section, and it'll be up to the individual to do their own curation based on their preferences. At the moment, there is no good way to do this. Yay. Which is why the next focus for developers will be a long-awaited feature, beatmap tags. Not the tags that already existed. Tags like these. This is the list on OMDB, and they might be the basis for what OSU has in the future. So for example, if you want to practice maps like this, you can filter by tech. Or if you want to earn PP, you can filter by jump aim. This can change the ranked maps list from a feed of mystery content to the maps you actually want to play, which might help resolve the never-ending concerns about what should be ranked. As for when beatmap tags will be implemented, this is what Peppy said in the last NAT meeting.
Now that that's done, I think we do have a bit of spare development throughput. We could probably line up one item that you guys think is the next big thing required for mapping, and if that happens to be tags, then I think we should lock that in. I would explicitly not want to make the mappers in control of the tags. I feel like that should be the community, and I think it's a good way to involve the community more in the ranking process. It's like it's a new interactive that would be quite fun for people to get involved in. I'll write that down as our next dev focus, and once we actually have the time to do that, I'll bring it up again.
Yep, sounds good. Yeah, if we could